Okay, here's a tutorial to show you how to make a timer in StarLogo Nova. So we are back on our paintball game, and it's the last one that I used in the video. So I have boxes of paintballs, I have hazards, and I am limiting my paintballs that we already went over. So now we'll make a timer, and I'm going to put my timer so I can see it in the middle of my screen. Timer is a data box, so I am going to click Edit Interface, and I'm going to create a widget, and I'm creating a data box widget. So you remember you can move it while you're editing your interface. And I'm going to put it right in the middle. I'm going to click on it once so I can rename it. So backspace, and I will name it timer. I'm going to set the game to play for 60 seconds. Maybe 120, and I want to get as many points as I can in that time frame. So I will first lock my interface. Now you can see my timer in the beginning. Just like our score and our boxes of paintballs, we need to go to the world and set it at, initialize it at the beginning of the game. So I'll go into interface and set my data box right at the top of my setup. And I will pick timer this time. And like we talked about with the other data boxes, I'm going to start it at a low number. So I'm going to start it at 20 to test it, and then I will put it up to either 60 or 120, or maybe 90, somewhere in that range to make it a little long. You wouldn't want to play your game for just 20 seconds. 30 might be okay. So now that we have our data box and we have initialized it, we'll test it. We'll hit run code, hit setup, and my timer is at 20. So now I have to decrease it. And I can do this in any agent, but I'm going to do it in the world. And I'll have to do this in a forever. So I am going to get a while forever toggled. I am going to set my timer to whatever it is, -1. So very similar to when we depleted the paintballs data box. So I will need this later, this tiny little data box command. So I'm going to pull it out now. And I will need my set my. And I will set my timer data box, and I'm going to subtract from 20 down to 0, and I'm going to actually stop my game at 0, and that will take a little more programming. But I will need the minus, which is in math. So I'll get the minus, put it in, and then there's my little data box command that I had already pulled out, and I'm going to say timer equals timer -1. Now let's go test it. So run code, and I actually have my engine speed at 10. F5, my game was a little too slow, and you can see my timer goes down very fast, and it does go into the negatives. So we're going to have to fix that, and it will reset to 20 every time I hit setup. So those are a couple things you wanted to check. So we're going to slow the timer down, and how we're going to slow the timer down is with a yield, and we have already used the yield when we made our character jump. So we'll go into logic and get a yield. 1 tick is equal to 1/5 of a second at engine speed 5. And where I'm at engine speed 10, 10 ticks will equal a second. So I have recommended people play my game at 10. So I'm going to repeat this yield. A yield equals 1 tick. I'm going to repeat this yield 10 times. So depending on what your engine speed is will depend on your yield. So if I repeat this 10 times, put it in my stack of code, so now my timer will equal my timer -1, then I will yield for 10 ticks, and then it will come back up and set my timer to timer -1. That will happen every second in real time. So I'll hit run code, I'll hit setup, I'll hit forever, and you can see my timer is much slower, and it's going a second at a time. Now, if you ran your game at a speed of 5, you would make your repeat 5. So we don't need to run through this. We already looked at it. My timer will still go into negative, and it doesn't mean anything if it doesn't stop the game. So what we're going to do is go back into interface, and we're going to get a toggle, because we'll toggle the forever off when our game ends. So I'm going to toggle forever off for everyone when the game ends. And that is one way to do it. However, I cannot just put that in the forever because my game will stop as soon as I start it. I have to decide when I want it. And I want my game to turn off when my timer equals 0. So I need to go in to logic and get an if, because I'm going to say if my timer is 0, stop everything. And instead of using equals 0, just in case it doesn't hit the 0, it hits a -1 before it gets to this piece of code, I'm going to actually use the less than. And I'm going to say if my timer is less than 1. So go into stay in logic. I'm going to get my less than. So I'm going to say if timer less than 1, which means 0. And as far as timer goes, I need this little data box. So I can pull it out and just control click and duplicate it. Or I can go in interface and get another one. And so now I'm saying if my timer is less than 1, then I will toggle forever off for everyone. So let's test it. I'm actually going to make it less than 20 seconds. I'm going to make it 5 seconds just for us to test. So we can make sure it's working. We want everything to stop. Timer is 5. Watching it go down. I can move. You can see my fish moving. I can launch paintballs. Oh, and now I am frozen because my timer equals 0. There's one more thing that people like to do. You can decide to do this or not. Is sometimes people like to delete all their agents when their game is over. So you could, instead of toggling everything off for everyone, you could delete everyone. And this is what will happen to your game. It's only going for 5 seconds, so it won't be long. So I'm launching my paintballs, the fish are swimming. At 0, then your game is really over. So it is your choice which one you want to do. You could actually do both. I think you'd have to put the delete everyone first. And that is how you make a timer. Now, one thing I forgot to do was take my timer, and I'm going to put it up to 60 seconds so my game plays for a minute. And I can just check it, run code, and set up, and the timer will start at 60 seconds, and I already tested everything else. So that's how you make a timer countdown in StarLogo Nova.